So who impressed under lights at Sydney Motorsport Park? The Supercars Championship is finally underway, and I thought I'd hold myself accountable and try and review every round. Last year I got to about round 2 or 3 and just gave up. I didn't do a very good job. But this year I'm going to try and do what I did with the CT Frot series. You can check that out over in my playlist up in the top right corner and review every round. I might even review the whole series of that. I'm not too sure. I'll try and find time for it. But anyway, the first round, it was the Sydney Super Night 500, and there was a lot of new things on display here. You had a new car, you had new drivers, you had new head honchos in teams, you had a new graphics package that for the life of it couldn't really get itself sorted throughout the whole weekend, but that's going to be the new teething issue throughout the first bit of the season, trying to get the graphics all sorted. And you had new commentary team. A lot of criticism for when they got rid of Neil Crompton, but I'm going to give the commentary team a leg up here. They didn't do a too bad a job in their first round. Chad Naylor and Garth Tander have worked with each other for years in the Super 2 series, so they gel with each other. It's just going to take a bit of gelling for the fans to get used to them. But anyway, I'm going to review all 3 races in the weekend and who did well and who didn't do so well, starting with race 1 on the Friday. It was a simple 100km sprint race, and it was actually Blanchard Racing Team that really pulled their socks up in the first race of the season. They got a front row lockout, and it was also their first pole. They whipped up a graphic, well, it was V8 Sleuth that whipped up a graphic of the last time a team got their first pole at the same time as a front row lockout. That was Gary Rogers Motorsport in 1999. Quite fitting that both Golding and Cameron are both Gary Rogers drivers. Well, they were drivers of Gary Rogers Motorsport. And it was Aaron Cameron that really got the jump in the first half of the race. Unfortunately for Cooper Murray, he had a lot of issues in the first race of the season for Total Energies, and he had some power steering issues and he wouldn't actually finish this race. Zach Bates ended up being a bit of a punching bag this weekend, and it really started in this race because he got a bit of a bump from Brodie Kostecki and pushed wide, and that caused Busch to get a 5-second penalty. First penalty of the season for anyone. And then pit stop started at about lap 10-ish, and Brock Feeney started to creep a wee bit closer towards the Blanchard Racing pair in 3rd position. It was lap 14 that Brock pitted for tyres, and Aaron Cameron would do the same thing about a lap later, but the undercut was too strong. Brock Feeney, along with a lightning pit stop from them, Brock Feeney managed to get out in front of Aaron Cameron in this one. There were a few bumps between Matt Payne and Will Brown going into turn 2. This was Brown's first race in a 888 car, so he had a lot of eyes on him to do well. Same with Brodie Kostecki as his first race in the 17 machine. Shame that he got the penalty. Golding decided to pit later on in the run, and he used that to his advantage by passing Cameron Waters late in the game. The only team that really rolled the dice on strategy was Walkinshaw pitting for 2 tyres. It didn't work, they sort of fell off a bit, but it would be Brock Feeney using 888 Fords for the first time to win his first race of the season. And this continues the impressive record that 888 has by winning the first race of the season in the last 17 out of 21 years. And then it was the day of days for Blanchard Racing Team because they would get a 2nd and a 3rd. James Golding getting now a streak going with a podium every year for the last 3 years. And Aaron Cameron got his first podium of his Supercars career. I've been a follower of Aaron Cameron for a long time, since his TCR days in the Gen 1 Volkswagen Golf GTI. He was very impressive then. That's when he really caught my eye as one for the future, and it's finally cool to see him get some silverware. Race 2 was a bit of a chaotic qualifying session because it had Anton De Pasquale for Team 18 on pole in a bit of a wet-dry session. There was a tight battle for the lead between Kostecki and ADP for the lead, but De Pasquale would get out in front there. Jackson Walls would have a bit of an issue in the 888 11 car. He went off in turn 1, lap 1, with also Macaulay Jones, and Jonesy would have a few issues a few laps later trying to sort some damage from that. There were a lot of hard battles from like 14th to 22nd or so. Zach Bates was once again the bully victim of this one. I feel like everybody but Will Brown managed to hit him in this race, and the only reason why Will Brown didn't hit him is because he's got a sponsor. Was because Will Brown's sponsoring Batesy on his helmet. It was lap 10 when the chaos really started, because Andre Heimgartner's engine would go kaput and it would cause a safety car, which would have everybody coming into the pits. By that I mean literally everybody. They chose to double stack and there was chaos everywhere. You had Brock Feeney getting a 15-second penalty for hitting, I think it was James Golding on the exit. You had Will Brown getting 15 seconds for spinning wheels in the pit lane. You had double stacking, you had slow stops, you had Jano Jada's wheel fall off in the pit lane, so that cost him a lot of time. And there was a chaotic restart on lap 19. There were boxing matches going on throughout the whole pack. At one point, Aaron Cameron was continuing his good race 1 result with a battle with Cameron Waters. Both Jake LeBrock and Cooper Murray decided to pit quite early on lap 29 for their second pit stop. Considering this was a 52 lap race, that's a long time to go on these tyres. Finally, as second stops happened, things started to settle down. It was Brodie Kostecki that decided to do a bit of a different strategy and go for the overcut. As the race started to wind down, Aaron Cameron's good result would fall by the wayside. He would have a lot of tyre troubles and fall outside of the top 10 running. Brodie Kostecki, meanwhile, would be going up with those fresher tyres. He was hunting the former Dick Johnson Racing driver Anton De Pasquale quite quickly in the 17 machine. But unfortunately for Busch, he was probably 1 or 2 laps too late. It would be Anton De Pasquale that would end up winning the second race of the weekend and getting the orange numbers on a Team 18 car, I think for the first time. It was his first win for the organisation. It was Team 18's first win since I think Mark Winterbottom at Darwin a few years ago. Brodie Kostecki, yes, finished second, and Matt Payne would end up having a bit of a lonely race in third. Jack LeBrock charged from the rear of the grid to get a top 10, and it would go bad to worse for Mostert. Race 1 was a bit of a struggle, and race 2 was worse because he would get disqualified from this and the qualifying session for not having tyre pressure sensors in the wheels, and that would really cost him in points, basically the equivalent of a did not finish. Race 3, and Brock Feeney finally got a pole this season, and it only took him 3 races, and he was really pressured by Kai Allen. They had made a lot of contact in the first part of this lap, but after a bit of aggro, things started to settle at the front. At the back, however, it was a bit of a chaos affair for the final 6 positions. You had David Reynolds and Cameron Hill spinning around at turn 6. Ryland Gray would eventually get a 15-second penalty for this, and I think one of the Erebus cars also made contact with David Reynolds, but I don't think any penalties came out of that one. There was a bit of a worry for Brock Feeney during this race. He had a massive plastic wrap in the front grille of the radiator. This was a very hot day at Sydney Motorsport Park, and there was a lot of water being consumed. So a big slab of water, the plastic wrap around it, ended up at the front of Brock Feeney's car. The engine temperature started to spike, but then it started to fall as the first pit stops happened, and a crew member quickly ripped that out of the front radiator grille. The problems for Erebus went from bad to worse. Joe Stewart had a bit of a right rear failure, I think it was, mid-race, and James Golding had a similar thing. His wheel would fall off going towards the pits. That's kind of weird because with the Stewart one, that was a lap after he pitted. James Golding, this was 10 laps after he pitted, so I don't know how the 2 failures can happen in such a different time frame. But the wheel would fall off the road and end up on the road, and that caused another safety car right when weather was coming in. So there was a bit of gambling on who would take what tyres. Once again, more double stacking happened, but a bit less chaos today. The only people that decided to gamble were the 2 Premier cars and Cooper Murray. I thought you'd just split the strategies up for Premier, but they were hedging. Roland Dane was hedging his bets one way for this one, and if it paid off, it was going to be a coup for the Queensland-based team. And as the restart happened, Kai Allen made probably the move of the year already. He went outside of Brock Feeney round turn 1 on slick tyres on a wet track, but it was slightly damp. It was at that point where both tyres were equally as quick as each other. I think there's going to be a bit of an awkward moment on the Lucky Dogs podcast this week because Will Brown hit Brody Kostecki into Anton De Pasquale, and Brown and De Pasquale both spun around, giving Brown a 15-second penalty. So in total, Will Brown got half a minute's worth of penalties this weekend. Eventually, the Premier cars had to give up the ghost on this alternate strategy because it started to dry up again, and they came back into the pit lane for their slicks. But unfortunately, Kai Allen's run would come to naught. At about lap 46, he would have a weird rear failure on the front left of the car. He had had a bit of contact with Brock Feeney in multiple areas on the front left, so maybe the two are linked. I think they said it was a control arm failure, but this would pay nay to Kai Allen's brilliant day up until then. And on the last lap, there was a weird contact between Brody Kostecki and Aaron Cameron. At this point, it was a Ford lockout for the top 5, and Brody Kostecki made weird contact with Aaron Cameron, causing Cameron to spin and Brody Kostecki to get a 15-second penalty. Really unneeded for this point of the weekend and for the positions they were fighting for. They were fighting for 4th and 5th. Not like he was going to go and try and get a trophy out of this, because it was the last lap as well. But in the end, it was Brock Feeney winning the second race of the season for himself and being tied on points with Matt Payne coming out of this weekend, because Matt Payne was ultra consistent throughout the weekend, not finishing outside of the top 5. It was just the fact that Brock Feeney had those wins, which technically puts him on top of him. Cameron Waters getting a podium out of this. Not as dominant as last year, but still a very good weekend for him. But anyway, who impressed? Well, obviously the 3 that I just mentioned impressed with Feeney, Payne and Waters, but also the Blanchard Racing team. Who would have thought that they would be probably the second most consistent Ford team, maybe behind Penrite, but it's a fight between them and Tickford for the next best Ford team. I'd say the 2 Chevy drivers of De Pasquale and LeBrock were impressive. Anton, easily the fastest Chevrolet out of this. If it wasn't for the fact that he got spun in the last race, he would have been the top Chevrolet in all 3 of them, and probably even close to a podium in at least 2 of those races, and winning the second one. And with Jack LeBrock, he got 2 top 10s for Matt Stone Racing, and a track they don't necessarily do well at as well, including that second race where he came from the back to the top 10. This is very impressive in the Sharon Reynolds car. And who was running on 7 cylinders for that weekend? Well, I'm going to put Toyota. They didn't really expect to do well throughout the weekend. I'm going to say they got lucky to get 5 drivers in the top 10 in that last race, because they didn't really show too much speed. Ryan Wood did at times, and so did Andre Heimgartner, but especially Chaz Mostert. He was quite disappointing throughout the whole of this year, or this weekend. Even if the Toyotas were struggling, you expect Chaz to be the top Toyota bloke, but at times he wasn't. It was mostly Wood and De Pasquale being the top Toyota, but Chaz was struggling around the likes of Cameron Hill, who was still gelling with the team, and Macaulay Jones, who's Macaulay Jones. Will Brown, with his first weekend in the Triple Eights, had a total of 1 top 10, 0 top 5s, and 2 15-second penalties, so that was quite disappointing from Will Brown. And same with his podcast teammate, Brody Kostecki. Those 2 were really racking up the penalties this weekend. Yes, Bush got the second, but the 5 and 15-second penalties in the other races were not very good for him. Erebus had a few niggling issues throughout the weekend, the same with Premier. And I was going to say all the rookies had their woes. They're expected to have their woes, and there are 5 of them, and none of them got top 10s. Batesy got close. He had good qualifying, but if it wasn't for the fact that he was just a driving punching bag, he probably could have got a top 10, but there is room to improve from all these rookies, and I expect them all to. So that's my first round review from the Supercars Championship. We'll be back in the next couple of weeks to review the round at Melbourne. We expect to see some new names up the grid. Maybe Matt Stone recoups that speed that they had, so fingers crossed for Zach Bates. Do Ford continue this dominance that they have over the series? Maybe. And does Toyota find a leg up in the next couple of weeks to try and get some speed at Melbourne? may be. But while you're waiting for that, give a like and a subscribe. The support would be very much appreciated. I'm going to be reviewing as much Supercars content as I can and getting some NASCAR content out as well. And while you're waiting for the next video, check out these two videos beside me. I have no idea what I'm going to put right beside me, whatever the algorithm chooses. And I'll see you in the next video, whatever one that may be.